I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and welcome to The Sidebar, a weekly show on the community, arts, culture, and more. Today we're talking with Stephanie Ferreira from Vintage901, so stay with us for a conversation with Stephanie. And a special thanks to our sponsor for The Sidebar, Trezevant Manor. Stephanie, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we've ordered this lovely classical music in the background. This is my standard joke these days.
I think this is perfect for Vintage901.
This is, actually, this is good. This is really good. So we're on the 10th floor of the Crosstown Atrium, Central Atrium. We've been flooded out of our studio since January, so we're piecing that together. So if you hear some classical music in the background, that's all good as they're playing. But it's great to meet you and great to have you here. For people who don't know, what is Vintage901?
Vintage901 is a food, wine, and music festival that we host here in the city, and it is to bring the community together. I mean, there's no better way to do it than through wine and food, and so that's what we do.
And you've got specifically your Spring Festival. It's your 8th annual Spring Festival coming up April 20th. And April 21st. Talk a little bit about what is going on with the Spring Festival.
Well, the Spring Festival is the event that brings the largest group of people. We have several events throughout the year, but this one brings the most people because we have a couple of days of events on a Saturday and a Sunday. So the first day is the grand tasting. I consider that to be the flagship. That is our biggest event. It hosts a lot of things. A lot of things are happening. You not only have all of the food vendors and food samples and things like that, but we actually do classes. And that's like the piece that I think is very important, which separates us from a lot of other wine and food events in the city, is that we have a sommelier that comes in from Chesapeake Bay, as well as some local wine experts that actually do these classes that will, help people learn more about different types of vintages, terroir, different areas of the world, how things differ. We do blind tastings. And what it does is, I think when people walk away, they've learned something and they take a little something away with them that maybe they wouldn't have known when they came.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I want to talk more about all that, but then also so people kind of have some framing here, on April 21st from noon to 2 at FedEx Event Center is the second part of the weekend.
That is the second part, because that's like the wind down from everything that we've done on Saturday, because there's a lot going on. I mean, we're not just talking about the food. We're not talking about great Memphis music. We're just not talking about the viniculture and the viticulture. We're talking about a lot of things are kind of happening all at one time when you go to the event on Saturday. So this is kind of a more laid back event. Your jazz music playing, and we still have an education component to it. Everything that we do has to be what we would consider to be a teaching and learning moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For tickets, before we come back to teaching and learning, tickets, people can search for Vintage901, go to the website. There's a link to buy tickets, assuming they're still available, as we're taping this a week in advance.
Yes.
And I don't think I said that the April 20th Saturday is from 6 to 9 at the Medicine Factory downtown. And again, April 21st is noon to 2 at the FedEx Event Center out at Shelby Farms. And again, go to Vintage901, search for Vintage901, find your way to Vintage901 online, and you can buy tickets to all that. Talk about, it's not just, like you keep saying, I mean, it's not just, it sounds like a chance to meet people, to be with friends, to drink good wine, to eat good food and learn about it. But why that? Why was that the origin of what you wanted to do?
Well, the real deal, Eric, is this is a organization and, as they say, a vision and a mission that was kind of born out of love. The relationship that I had with my husband, who is deceased now, and he loved wine and he loved going to wine events. there was a time we were starting to kind of do that in, let's just say, the middle to late 90s, and not feeling as welcome at some local types of events. And so we would go other places, and it just felt like it was a connection to this and a connection to the people as well as the community. And so ultimately we kind of talked about that, and it was like, can we do something like that in Memphis? People who normally would not be, as they say, the usual suspect or the curious that will want to come to an event like this, how is it that we can pull them in to something like this? And so that's what it was really born out of in the city that we love. So that's how it came about.
It's interesting because wine is daunting and can seem daunting to people, right? And good food. And I'm a white guy, and so I probably look like I should be in that room. You know, the room of the people drinking the wine, like, is going to be, oh, here's this white guy who's going to walk in. But I grew up dirt poor, eating fish sticks and powdered milk. And when I kind of got older and, you know, people around me were real comfortable talking about wine or comfortable talking about food. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah,
you know, and so it's interesting, the invitation to kind of learn about something that I happen, as anybody who listens to this podcast or listens to Sound Bites or food podcasts, know that I love wine and I love good food. But it's no fun if people make it daunting and make it inaccessible.
Right. And that becomes, I think, the key part for doing this. One of them is to make everyone feel a part, make everyone feel comfortable, make people want to be there, and, you know, learn. And we're not trying to make it like, okay, you've got to learn this, you know, like it's some curriculum to it. It all comes down to
there's going to be a wrong answer. Right?
There's no wrong answer. It's what you like, but to be able to be introduced to it. Sometimes that's all we need is opportunity. We just need the opportunity. And that's what has been nice about watching this over the last several seasons is, I think, the growth of, I think, many of the people who come, and it's something that they were curious about. And now some of them have taken it to the next level of just wanting to be a part and to meet people. It's definitely a connector. There's no doubt about that. And just keep it simple. I mean, that's all that we do. But, you know, not trying to have it as something particularly high level. But if you want to know more, it's there for you.
It reminds me, we recently had, bear with me as I try to make this connection, Nikisha Cole, who's the arts and culture liaison for Shelby County government. She's been there, I think, a year and a half, something like that. And they try to facilitate connections and outreach and events around lots of different arts organizations in town. And part of what they try to do is take these arts organizations to parks and public places that might not otherwise have arts there, and that, you know, bring some representation from the Brooks Museum, some representation from Hattie Lou, some representation from these arts organizations to people who otherwise maybe haven't made it, don't have an invitation to make it to these arts organizations, just to make it accessible. Right. And I think, another thing that reminds me of is we interviewed Lakeisha Edwards from the Urban Arts Commission a couple months ago. And that's one of my favorite things about Memphis is all this public art in public spaces that is very accessible. You can go up and touch it. You can take your picture in front of it. It is both beautiful and striking and thought-provoking, but incredibly accessible. And it takes down that sort of sense that you have to go up the steps, through the doors, beyond the gallery, into the quiet to really appreciate art, which I like that. I have no problem with that necessarily, but I like it all. You know, so it reminds me of that vibe.
And I think that, you know, the other piece of the puzzle that has been interesting when you brought that up, every year for this tasting, this grand tasting, we have moved to a different space because we want to be able to show what Memphis has to offer. You have people that have lived here all their lives, and they have never been to the Brooks, or they haven't been to Crosstown, or they haven't been to the Memphis College of Arts when it was there, or they haven't, we've just been so many places. This year, we're at the Medicine Factory. We were at Aero Creative last year for this tasting, where we want to be able to mix the arts. The Medicine Factory have this beautiful installation right now. Art installation. People need to see it. If they don't know about the Medicine Factory, they need to learn. They will be able to come and do what we do, but also do something extra on top of that, and being able to see this wonderful art installation that's there right now.
Again, we're here with Stephanie Ferreira from Vintage901. Their big event is coming up. The Spring Festival is coming up April 20th, Saturday, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Medicine Factory, as Stephanie just mentioned. And then the following day, April 21, from 12 to 2 at the FedEx Event Center out at Shelby Farms. Go to Vintage901, search for it. There's a link to buy tickets. And we'll talk for a second more about the mission and some of the proceeds from the event and where that's going to go. But let me do a bit of housekeeping here. And remind everyone, I'm Eric Barnes, and this is The Sidebar. It airs on WYXR 91.7 every Thursday at 11:30. We're focused on the community, arts, culture, and everything in between. It's not just a radio show, though. It's one of many weekly podcasts we do at the Daily Memphian, including Soundbites that is hosted by Chris Harrington and Holly Whitfield. That airs on WYXR every Thursday at 11, right before the Sidebar. We also have our Memphis Grizzlies podcast. We have Behind the Headlines podcast, which is the audio version of the TV show we do over at WKNO. And from time to time, we'll have On the Record, our politics podcast, hosted either by Bill Dries or Sam Hardiman, as they're talking to candidates and folks running for office. All of those are available at Daily Memphian. They're available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get this show and Soundbites, the food show, at WYXR.org, or download the WYXR app, where you can get all the shows on WYXR, both the talk shows and all archives of all the music shows, or the live feeds of the music shows. WYXR just had its big pledge week. It's spring pledge week. So if you didn't get a chance to support, you still can. You can go to WYXR.org or download the app. You can give a one-off donation. You can give a recurring donation. You can become a member and get all kinds of benefits of becoming a member at various levels. WYXR is nonprofit, listener-supported radio, so do, again, consider supporting them. Also, the Daily Memphian, I should always mention, is a nonprofit newsroom. It is 501c3, the largest newsroom in the region, and we are very much supported by your paid subscription. So if you're not a subscriber, do consider becoming one, or become a supporter, a donor, or any other way that you can support us. So we do appreciate that very much. Coming up soon on the Sidebar, Philip Ashley, known for his chocolate and just for his entrepreneurship, he will be on, which will be great for me because I've actually never met Philip. So I'm really looking forward to meeting him and talking to him about what he's doing. We recently had, as I mentioned, Nikisha Cole talking about Shelby County efforts, the government efforts to kind of facilitate and bring together lots of arts organizations in her relatively new role. And we talked to Lauren Kennedy, who is the longtime head of the Urban Art Commission, but in December opened her own gallery in the Edge District. Great conversation with her about things going on at Sheet Cake, her gallery. So you can get that, again, wherever you get your podcasts. I mentioned Behind the Headlines. We recently had Bill Hargrave, the president of the U of M, on. We had Robert Connect, the head of Public Works, talked about all kinds of things like sewers and infrastructure and stuff that fascinate me. And I'm going to look at Natalie Van Gundy and ask her, coming up soon on Behind the Headlines will be, we don't know. What? We always know. I'm looking at Natalie. Don't take this out. Don't take this out. So we get surprise guests coming up soon on Behind the Headlines. But again, we're here with Stephanie Ferreira from Vintage901. You mentioned, let's start with the scholarship. Proceeds from the event, from the Spring Festival, will go to support a scholarship for who, what, and sort of what?
Right. Students that are interested in the culinary arts, enology, viticulture, and viniculture. You have a level of students out here that, may want to do 2-year degrees, or that they want to go on to 4-year degrees, or to, the cordon bleu, who knows? And we want to be able to help facilitate that and shape their careers, moving forward. And we hope that they will come back and they will join us in the future. But we also give money to other I think, very worthy organizations around here, such as the Women's Foundation, promoting educational initiatives. We definitely believe in the Mid-South Food Bank. We love the creative arts through Arts Memphis, as well as the Shell, and so on and so forth. So we are kind of doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
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 It is interesting how I've gotten to interview on this, and as part of Sidebar, a fair number of, whether it's chefs or restaurateurs, and their stories are just fascinating and how they got there. And I recently interviewed Josh Burgess, who opened Lucy J's Bakery here in Crosstown, where the quartet is playing in the central atrium. If you came in late and didn't hear that, that's why the music's in the background. And he came, I can't remember if he went to college or not, but then he got working at kind of big chain restaurants and got to be a manager. And then that kind of morphed into a mission that in part came from he and his wife wanting to be supportive of a nonprofit and do it through creating jobs for primarily women who are homeless or homeless families who are being rehoused and kind of in transition, and wanting to make sure that they had a good place where they could learn, they could make a living, make a fair living, be treated well, and maybe make a career out of it. And even youth villages, I was up there and toured youth villages in the fall, and they have a really big culinary program for kids who've really had a really tough go, a really tough life. And it gives them a sense of kind of hope and purpose and a future, and some training that doesn't involve even a 2-year degree, let alone a 4-year degree, which is daunting for a lot of people and not right for a lot of people.
Right.
So,
right. I think one of the I'm going to use the word special things about being interested in, let's just say, food, good food, is I think that it has a very organic place in most people, whether or not you can, let's just say, cook, or that you can, be a chef or something like that. But we all enjoy it.
Right.
Most people can really get behind that. And it is heartfelt. It's love. You do feel the love when it comes down to someone who has taken that time to prepare even the simplest dish. And so I think that's why it is a good place to start. Everybody isn't, I know I wasn't. You're not thinking about being an engineer or going into STEM or just whatever, even though that's wonderful, or that you're going to be a lawyer. But to get in the kitchen and put together a great salad or biscuits or whatever it is that you do, I think that it's a good place for almost anybody to start. And can you have a really great career out of it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's something I think that's innate. You start with that. You start with that as a baby. Yeah. In a lot of cases. Yeah.
I mean, when my kids are in their early 20s now, but when they were younger, we were very, very all but militant about family dinner, because that was a time to connect. That was a time to talk. That was a time where there's no phone. Even they were pre-phone, and then they had phones, but it was phones off, phones away, no TVs. And we were very, very disciplined during the week about that, because it was hugely connecting for all of us. And some of our best memories, I think, as a family, there wasn't any particular thing that happened, but we talked about things that would come up that they would never talk about. And I think that's true too as an adult, not just with my kids, but with strangers, there is this sort of connection around food and a table of some sort.
You don't have to know people.
Right.
You don't have to know them.
Right.
But to be able to share a nice glass of wine, or to, we'll just say, share a drink or share a meal, there is something, again, organic about it from person to person.
Yeah.
And it does connect us.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everyone looks at that as a fellowship builder.
Right.
When we're doing events, a lot of times, you're going to see that. Even, if it's something small, some kind of little layout or spread, because everybody's going to gravitate to that space.
Yeah.
and you might say something to each other. Yeah.
Well, it's like when you have a party at your house and everybody goes to the kitchen and you've set up your living room and like everything's all supposed to be nice over there and everyone's just crowded into the kitchen. But there's something, I mean, clearly, innate and natural about that sort of gravitation to the food and to the wine and to the non-alcoholic drink, whatever, that communion that comes through all the food and drink.
It's true. And I've just noticed all the questions that people ask. Just as you're kind of walking around the space, you hear them talking to the suppliers or the bartenders or whatever about things. They are talking to like our sommelier about what should I pair this with. So there's curiosity. Yeah. And as long as we're thinking, we're kind of sparking off a little bit, that's major.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, we're here with Stephanie Ferrer from Vintage901. Do look to go to their event the weekend of April 20 and 21. You can learn more at Vintage901. There's a whole, and listen to the interview from the beginning. I won't make Stephanie describe the whole thing again, but it's a big, great event, the 8th annual Spring Festival. You also do a dinner in the fall.
We do.
Talk about that.
It's what we consider to be our fine dining dinner. We've done it over the years with chefs such as, Kelly English. Our last one was at Dory. We've done it with at the Lobbyist, which I have to admit we love Jimmy Gentry very much.
Yeah, the Lobbyist is really good.
The Lobbyist is phenomenal. And we did something a little different this past November. We let him do brunch for us. He opened up the restaurant. He's not open on Sunday. He does not do a brunch. This might give him the idea. It was phenomenal. It was something that sold out extremely quickly, and he did. I'm going to give him that praise. He did a phenomenal. He and his staff did a phenomenal job with it, and it was a lot of learning there. We featured South African wines for this particular event. And usually we pull out certain things. I want you to know everything is very intentional. You might not know behind the scenes how much time and work with the SOM, wine experts, the retailers, the distributors, the suppliers going into picking each bottle. And by the time we're finished this year, we're probably at about 80 wines.
Really? Between the 2 days, April 20 and 21?
No, just that one day.
Just the one day?
Just the 20th. Just the 20th at the grand tasting.
Yeah.
Between the classes.
Yeah.
And then just the grand tasting itself. And just to let people know a little bit, I mean, I feel like people probably know this, but when we say grand tasting, that's just kind of a free for all. It's not like you will get a little punch card. If you like something, you can keep going back there to it.
No, I love that.
It's just, it's
I've gone to these things and you go, I want that.
Yeah, it's like you got that and then I'm going to punch a card and, it's like, okay. No.
That's beautiful.
So basically what you have is you've got your New World wines and you have bars for that. So that's like California, Washington, and Oregon. Let's just say that. And then you have your Old World. So Old World might be Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, Germany, and then you have other wines that might go outside of that, which would be Latin America, that might be somewhere like Argentina. And then you have like South Africa. So you've got bars for all of that. And you start figuring out more about this is what I like. Now, my favorite, believe it or not, is sparklers. Yeah. I like sparkling wines. That's what I like. So I love it when people will say to us as a team, we had a full round of that. And you're going to find it at that bar, New World and Old World.
Yeah.
Meaning it might be a sparkler from Italy, as well as you're going to get one from Napa or Sonoma, Mendocino Valley or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Willamette, whatever. Yeah.
You're in good company because my girlfriend loves sparkling wine, so that's good.
Okay, yeah. So, but it's open. That's why it's a grand tasting.
Yeah.
This is kind of, I don't want to make it seem like it's kind of bottomless, but that's what a grand tasting is, so that you can have that build up and have the opportunity to sample a lot of different things.
You've traveled a ton, it sounds like. Drinking food, eating food? No? Some. What were some of your favorite places to go?
This is way off the beaten path, but probably my favorite was, and I'm getting old, Eric.
So am I.
Yeah.
We're in this together.
But it was New York.
Yeah.
To a cider festival.
Really?
Hard cider.
Huh.
It was one of our favorites.
Where in New York, give or take?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. But in the city or kind of upstate?
Help me out a little bit because you're going to know this. And that's what I'm saying. I'm having a senior
up
moment.
The Hudson River Valley.
Great Neck.
Okay, out Long Island way. I think that's Great Neck. Yeah.
Great Neck.
Great Neck.
Yeah. That's where it was.
Huh.
And it was fantastic. And we were, as I like to say, the culture. In the space. Just like when we went to Oregon, we were the culture in the space.
You were the culture in Oregon.
I
say that as someone who grew up on the Northwest.
Yeah. Because we stayed in Medford.
Yeah.
And we drove over and make a long story short, met the best folks. And folks seemed like they were so glad to see us.
Yeah.
And they didn't know us.
Yeah.
That's what vintage is. We don't know you, but come on in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell a quick story. My dad, 100 years ago, my dad was going to, he and my stepmom wanted to go to a winery that they really loved this wine. They found the wine out, probably in Napa. They drive up there. They see all these people driving in. They pull in, they drive in, they go in, they're drinking wine. They're there for like 30, 45 minutes. And my dad, as he later says, he goes, at some point I realized not only was it not an open tasting, it was the winery owner's daughter's wedding.
Oh, wow. And they were at the wedding?
And, they were there and they started to realize there's this wedding going on. And he said, and he finally went up to the guy, it was Trefethen wine, and it was Mr. Trefethen, and said, I'm really sorry. We're not supposed to be here. We thought this was public. And the guy was so nice and got him a couple bottles of wine and left. But it's kind of like, they were literally not supposed to be there. And there's something about this sort of culture around wine and around food and around all
it really
that.
was. There were things that I think that we had that maybe we didn't really pay for with our ticket.
Yeah.
It's like, come over here, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's that kind of, I would say, a culture. Yeah.
But before we go, we just have a couple seconds left.
Okay.
Here. Again, Stephanie Ferreira is from Vintage901. Search for Vintage901. Their spring festival is coming up the weekend of April 20 and 21. There's an evening event on the 20th and an afternoon event on the 21st. You can buy tickets if you go to Vintage901. Proceeds go to support the Vintage901 scholarship. The thing I always try to ask people when they're on the show is, what was the first concert you went to?
The first concert I ever went to?
Yeah.
Probably like the Jackson 5.
Yeah, I love how you say that so casually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the Jackson 5.
And then the next one was Prince, and he was the headliner, though, was Rick James.
Nice.
Prince was the opening
opener
act.
for Rick James.
Yes.
Nice. Here in Memphis?
Yes, sir, at the Coliseum.
Nice. Very good.
That's what it was.
Stephanie, thank you so much. This is great. I hope the event goes really well. So thank you for being here.
Can I say one other thing really quickly? We would really like to thank our sponsors. Okay. Which is Memphis Tourism, TVA Monogram Foods, as well as Otika. Okay.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. That is all the time we have this week. Join us again next week for The Sidebar. I'm Eric Barnes. Thanks very much.